A day in the office, SJC Boxing, home of champions. And seems like I've been coming here all my life. This is so many great memories and thoughts coming in to open the gym, great fighters, inspiration. It's just unbelievable. I cannot believe all my life, and this is 57 years, this gym, and this is the story.
The story begins in post-war Brooklyn, New York, where on July 11, 1946, Steve Canton was born. From those early days in the borough to the neighborhoods of Levittown, Long Island, his life would be shaped by discipline, competition, and an unwavering love for sport. Part 1. The Making of a Fighter. In the quiet streets of Levittown, a young boy found his rhythm in movement and competition. Steve Canton spent most of his early years there, growing up in a community built on hard work and ambition. At 9 years old, he picked up a baseball and stepped onto the field. What began as a childhood pastime quickly revealed something more: focus, determination, and natural athletic ability. But it was at age 11 that his path sharpened. He walked into the Police Boys Club in Levittown, a place where young men learned discipline through sport, where sweat and structure replaced distraction. From that day forward, two passions would define him: baseball and boxing. Baseball taught him patience and teamwork. Boxing demanded courage and resilience. He excelled in both. Through his teenage years, Canton balanced the diamond and the ring, building not just strength, but character. Coaches noticed his work ethic. Teammates respected his drive. He was not just participating, he was competing. Along the way, powerful influences left their mark. As a teenager, he met announcer Don Dumphy, who encouraged him for years. He befriended Joe Cortez during the New York Golden Gloves tournament in 1960. Their friendship has remained all these years. And in a New York gym, Sugar Ray Robinson personally corrected his left hook, an adjustment Canton would teach for the rest of his life. By the time he graduated high school in 1964, his course was set. At 17 years old, Steve Canton made a decision that would take him far away. He enlisted in the United States Air Force, stepping into a world of structure, discipline, and service. Basic training tested him. Technical schools sharpened him. Then came orders that would change everything. He was shipped overseas to San Vito dei Normanni Air Station in Italy. Thousands of miles from home, immersed in a new culture, a new mission, and new challenges. Just 1 month after arriving, another opportunity emerged, one that would fuse his military service with his fighting spirit. Steve Canton became the youngest member of the United States Air Force boxing team in Europe. And this was no ordinary team. It was regarded as one of the truly great military boxing teams of its era, stacked with seasoned fighters, disciplined competitors, and hardened athletes. For a young airman barely out of high school, it was both an honor and a proving ground. He was no longer just a local standout from his hometown. He was training among elite fighters, learning from experienced champions, being mentored by men who understood the science and soul of the ring. For Steve Canton, Europe was more than an assignment. It was where talent met opportunity, where discipline met destiny, and where a young athlete began to understand what it truly meant to fight, not just for victory, but for excellence. The foundation was set. Part 2. Mentors and Brotherhood. Among his teammates was Joe Souza, a seasoned amateur boxer nearing the end of his career. At 35 years old, Souza was the oldest member of the team. Canton, just 18, was the youngest. The pairing seemed intentional. The Air Force assigned them as roommates, an experienced veteran alongside a young prospect. Officially, the reasoning was simple. The older fighter would keep an eye on the youngest member of the team. But Canton would later tell it differently. Joe Souza, who years later would become one of the most respected cutmen in boxing history, was at the time a military cook, a small bantamweight fighter with a sharp wit and unpredictable energy. Their age gap and personalities created a unique dynamic. In one light-hearted exchange, Canton once asked Souza how, as a cook, he managed to stay so lean. Souza's reply was classic and cutting. He may have been a cook, but he was not foolish enough to eat his own cooking. Beneath the humor, however, was mentorship. Souza shared experience, discipline, and the realities of the fight game. While leadership believed the veteran was there to guide the young man, Canton often joked that he was the one doing the supervising. Souza's intensity and wild streak made their room anything but dull. Yet Joe Souza was only one of several influential figures in Canton's development. He was also mentored by former middleweight standout Formus White, whom Canton would later describe as the greatest amateur boxer he had ever seen. White's technical mastery, ring intelligence, and composure left a profound impression. Canton not only trained alongside him, but sparred with him, absorbing lessons that could not be taught in words alone. Another towering presence was Willie Blaylock, a formidable light heavyweight who later moved up to heavyweight and rose to become one of the top fighters in the world. Blaylock's power and professionalism set a standard. Decades later, their bond remains intact, a testament to the brotherhood forged in those training camps. For a teenager far from home, the experience was extraordinary. He was no longer simply a promising athlete. He was immersed in a fraternity of elite competitors, mentored by seasoned fighters, sharpened by sparring sessions, and shaped by men who had already earned their place in boxing history. To Steve Canton, the opportunity was more than a chapter in his career. It was an education in greatness. Part 3. Fighting Through Pain. During his 2 years competing in European Air Force tournaments, Canton trained with relentless intensity. Each morning, before most of the base had stirred, he ran 18 miles in military boots, 9 miles out from the base and 9 miles back. The run was only the beginning. He would then spend hours in the gym, pushing himself beyond exhaustion. But the punishment took its toll. His hands began to fail him, damaged, swollen, and increasingly fragile. Every day after training, Canton reported to the base hospital for heat treatments and therapy. Doctors warned him repeatedly that his hands were too badly damaged to continue fighting. Their advice was firm: stop boxing. His response was just as firm. The next morning, he laced up his boots and ran again. This cycle, training, treatment, warning, continued for the entire 2 years he was stationed in Europe. Determination overruled diagnosis. Discipline overruled doubt. But when his military service ended in 1968, life shifted. Canton returned home, married, and made a promise to his wife: no more boxing. It was time to build a stable future, to work a regular job, to step away from the ring. Part 4. The Return. Living in Dayton, Ohio, he eventually walked back into a gym and back into boxing. There he met Shelton Bell, who became his trainer and immediately put him in to spar with a young fighter named Sammy Maul. Canton didn't know who Maul was at the time. He only knew the man was a sharp southpaw. The rounds were intense, and the chemistry in the ring was undeniable. Maul would later go on to become a national AAU champion, making the early sessions even more significant in hindsight. Shelton Bell carried a powerful boxing lineage. He was the brother of Tommy Bell, and he was a national light heavyweight champion, Golden Gloves champion, and AAU heavyweight champion. Tommy Bell went 15 rounds with Sugar Ray Robinson, losing a decision for the welterweight championship of the world. Canton was now training under a name deeply respected in boxing circles. But once again, his wife reminded him of the promise he had made to step away from the sport. Soon after, the family relocated to Cincinnati, Ohio in early 1969. There, Canton walked into the Emmanuel Community Center gym on Race Street, located in one of the city's toughest neighborhoods. Within minutes, a fighter in the ring invited him to spar. Out of condition but willing, Canton stepped in. They went 8 fast rounds. The fighter was Larry McCall, later a finalist in the 1976 Olympic trials. Canton would eventually manage and train him. On March 23, 1969, inside that modest community center, the SJC Boxing Club was born, marking the beginning of a new chapter, not as a fighter, but as a mentor and builder of champions. The gym did not emerge in isolation. It took root in a city already shaped by boxing, struggle, and resilience, drawing from a deep well of local history that gave the program meaning from its very first day. The Emmanuel Community Center. The building itself carried a presence, worn but dignified, shaped by decades of athletes who had passed through its doors. Race Street was more than an address. It was a crossroads of culture, community, and hard-earned opportunity, and the gym fit naturally into that environment. A shared ring with history. About 15 years before SJC Boxing arrived, the same gym, the same ring, and the same space had been occupied by one of boxing's great figures. Ezzard Charles trained there, honing his craft in that very room under the guidance of his longtime trainer, Jimmy Brown. Their footsteps were still embedded in the floor, their echoes still present in the walls. Jimmy Brown's presence. When SJC Boxing began using the facility, Jimmy Brown was still there. He sat behind a desk, a quiet witness to another era, carrying with him the knowledge and memory of championship days. There was an immediate sense of continuity. Conversations came easily, respect was mutual, and a bond formed that bridged generations of boxing. Those moments shared in passing or conversation became lasting memories. Carrying the legacy forward. SJC Boxing was not just a new program in an old building. It was a continuation of something larger. Training fighters in the same ring where champions once stood created a powerful sense of responsibility and pride. The gym's beginnings were rooted in history, guided by those who came before, and driven by the belief that the next chapter of boxing could rise from the same place. In the end, SJC Boxing's story is inseparable from its setting. It is a story of March 23, 1969, of Race Street, of a community center, and of a ring that connected generations. What began as a simple opening day became part of a much longer narrative, one defined by legacy, memory, and the enduring spirit of the sport. Part 5. A Gym of Champions. The Emmanuel Community Center became a magnet for talent. The level of ability walking through the doors was remarkable. A 15-year-old named Aaron Pryor came in to train. Soon the gym was filled with future champions and elite amateurs. Tony Tubbs, Frankie Williams Jr., Jeff Whaley, Sonny Long, Jamie Thomas, Clifford Wills, Roy Dale, Larry McCall and his brother Jeff McCall, Tommy Ayers and Billy Joyner, a national champion who later became Canton's business partner and a lifelong friend. Morris Jordan, Wiley Johnson, Anthony Jones, and Rodney Watts, more national champions and standout amateurs, were part of the daily grind. It was an era defined by discipline, competition, and uncommon talent. Day after day, the gym overflowed with fighters who would leave their mark on the sport. For Canton, it was more than a boxing club. It was a proving ground, surrounded by greatness in the making. Meanwhile, in 1971, a former national amateur champion named Emanuel Stewart opened a small gym in Detroit called Kronk. What began as a modest local boxing program quickly became one of the most respected training grounds in the world. Fighters from across the country were drawn to it. Thomas Hearns, Hilmer Kenty, Milton and Stevie McCrory, Jimmy Paul and his brother Jesse, Mickey Goodwin, Dwayne Thomas, David Braxton. Kronk was stacked with talent. It wasn't just a gym, it was a proving ground. Part 6. Brotherhood. Steve Canton and Emanuel Stewart met when they were young men rising in the sport. Stewart was 2 years older. Their birthdays were just 4 days apart, July 7 and July 11. A small detail that became a lifelong tradition. For more than 40 years, neither ever missed a birthday call. No matter where they were in the world, the phone would ring. Their friendship was built on more than admiration. They spoke constantly about fighters, training philosophy, and the science of the ring. Stewart came to Florida several times and personally set up training camps with Canton. Even when they were apart, they worked side by phone, analyzing bouts, breaking down strategy, shaping fighters from a distance. There was deep trust between them, shared history, shared battles in a sport that demands everything. When Emanuel Stewart was diagnosed with cancer at 68, he called Canton himself. He spoke calmly. He said he was dying. They talked about the old days, about Kronk, about champions, about the journey. Stewart made him promise not to tell anyone. He didn't want tributes. He didn't want commotion. He wanted to leave quietly. When he passed, it was devastating. For Steve Canton, it was not just the loss of a legendary trainer. It was the loss of a brother. By the mid-1980s, after years in Cincinnati, Steve Canton was ready for warmer weather and a new chapter. He relocated to Austin, Texas, and as always, he opened a gym. Part 7. Texas Heat. In Austin, Canton quickly built momentum. He began promoting amateur boxing shows every 6 weeks, creating a consistent platform for young fighters across the region. The talent pool was strong. Javier Alvarez went on to become a national champion. Carlos Valdez earned national honors. Matthew Bedberdick, Johnny Casas, and others developed into top-level competitors during that period. Old friendships reconnected. His former roommate, Joe Souza, based in San Antonio, brought amateurs to compete on the Austin cards. Tony Ayala Sr. arrived with his fighting sons, Michael, Tony Jr., and Sammy, adding fire to the events. From Fort Hood came the great military boxing team under Coach Kenny Adams, along with Alton Murkinson, both of whom became lifelong friends. The shows blended civilian prospects and military discipline into competitive, high-level matchups. One young novice from the Fort Hood team had his very first fight on one of Canton's Austin cards, a boxer named Al Cole. Within a year, he became a national champion, later an Olympian, and eventually a professional world champion. His journey started in that Texas ring. Austin was filled with strong fighters, loyal friendships, and memorable nights. After a few productive years, Canton once again moved forward, this time to Fort Myers, Florida, where the next chapter awaited. On March 23, 1989, Steve Canton opened his gym in Fort Myers, Florida. The date was no accident of memory. It was the exact same date he had opened his gym in Cincinnati 20 years earlier. March 23, 1969. 2 decades apart, the same commitment, a new city, a new beginning. Part 8, a new corner in Fort Myers. Shortly after his arrival, the city of Fort Myers shut down its amateur boxing program due to budget cuts. The closure left young fighters without structure, without a gym, and without direction. Many were suddenly back on the streets. SJC boxing has always been a special place, one where there was never a shortage of willing participants. When the city of Fort Myers closed its boxing program, a void was left behind. Though SJC had been primarily involved in professional boxing, its leadership decided it was time to provide an outlet for amateurs as well. Canton had spent most of his previous years focused on professional boxing. Amateur boxing had not been his primary lane, but the need was there, and he chose to step in. He brought the displaced amateur fighters into his gym. There was one challenge. His experience was mostly rooted in training professionals. So he trained the amateurs the only way he knew how, like pros. The results were immediate. Within the first 2 years, SJC boxing produced 28 state champions, 6 regional champions, 1 national champion. Among the standouts were David Armstrong, Eric Alexander, Richard Diaz, Isaac Washington, Scott Erickson, and Oscar Montilla. The program quickly became one of the strongest amateur systems in the region, built on professional discipline, and as the gym's success grew, the city of Fort Myers regained funding and sought to restart its PAL boxing program. Officials approached Canton to run it. He declined. His focus remained on his own gym and professional fighters. Instead, his assistant coach and longtime friend Larry Willis stepped forward. Willis became head coach of the Fort Myers PAL program and went on to build years of success there. The friendship between Canton and Willis remained strong, lasting decades. Canton returned his primary attention to professional boxing. But as the years passed, amateur boxing once again found its way back into the gym, because there was a need. The program evolved into a hybrid model: professionals, amateurs, and individuals training purely for fitness. Fighters seeking championships worked alongside men and women who simply wanted to train like boxers and build discipline. At the heart of the gym stood something heroic: a 16-foot, 3-rope certified boxing ring from the 1930s. It remains the oldest boxing ring still in active use in the world. The ring serves as the centerpiece of the facility, a living artifact of boxing's golden era. The bell to that ring, which is on display in the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame Museum, was used in the movie Cinderella Man. Over the years, legendary fighters have stepped through those ropes to train, spar, and prepare for battle. World-class professionals worked on the same canvas where local amateurs trained for their first bouts. Today, when young fighters walk into the gym, they step into that same historic ring. The atmosphere carries weight. History is not framed on the walls, it lives in the ring. From day one in Fort Myers, the foundation was strong, and it has remained that way ever since. Beginnings on the grass. They began outside, meeting and training on the grass and in the parking lot of Shady Oaks Park. Practice ran Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. 25 kids showed up. There was no equipment. They improvised. Broomsticks and garden hoses became exercise tools, and determination replaced resources. Ronnie Lane and Dave Miller from Bill Branch Chevrolet stepped forward to sponsor a boxing event on their property, giving newcomers a chance to display their skills in exhibition bouts. The event was fun and successful. Among the spectators that day was Robert Ellis. He introduced himself and handed over a set of keys to a building he owned on Jackson Street, offering the space so the group could establish a permanent gym and eventually purchase it. The property was not zoned for a boxing facility, so an application for conditional use was submitted and approved by the city. The building was large, big enough for training, hosting shows, handling concessions, and accommodating parking. It became home for a few years before it was eventually demolished by the city. Through the sacrifice and dedication of coaches Larry Willis, Octavio Soto, Joe Taylor, and John Mitchell, and through the relentless work of the young fighters, an outstanding amateur boxing program quickly emerged. In the first 6 months, 29 boxers competed for state titles, earning 21 gold medals, 6 silvers, and 2 bronze medals. 3 were named outstanding boxers at various tournaments. SJC hosted the Florida Association Golden Gloves Tournament and was selected to take a team of 10 Open champions to Miami, returning with 5 gold medals, 4 silvers, and 1 bronze. Fighters won several regional championships and 1 national title. 2 of the boxers, Eric Alexander and Isaac Washington, were selected as outstanding youth of Lee County by the Edison Kiwanis Club. At the Florida State Junior Olympic Tournament, a team of 8 brought home 7 gold medals and 1 silver, earning the team trophy. At the State Sunshine Games, 10 boxers returned with 7 golds, 2 silvers, 1 bronze, and another team trophy. In its first year of competition, SJC captured 3 team trophies across 4 major tournaments. As the program grew, SJC hosted powerhouse teams from Georgia and Ohio and performed exceptionally well. The Cape Coral Police Department sought assistance in launching its own program, and Canton met with Chief Arnold Gibbs and Major Bill Austin to help implement it. Another amateur program began in Port Charlotte. Opportunities for youth boxing across the region expanded. During this time, SJC relocated multiple times, from the Armory at Terry Park to a storefront on Palm Beach Boulevard, then to Fowler Street, where it remained for 15 years. In 2010, it moved to Winkler Avenue for another decade. The professional chapter. Attention soon returned to professional boxing. John LaMarca joined as trainer and cornerman. The first major professional card took place on October 17, 1995, at the Charlotte County Memorial Auditorium in Punta Gorda, Florida. The 9-bout card featured former SJC amateurs David Diamond D. Armstrong, Richard Diaz, Martin Santos, and Scott the Sandman Erickson, alongside future world champions Freeman the Natural Barr and Stephen Frank, and top contender Feliciano Felica Correa. That night, a tradition of inviting Hall of Fame legends as honored guests began. Carmen Basilio was the first. Many others followed: Gene Fulmer, Johnny Saxton, Emmanuel Stewart, Angelo Dundee, Hank Kaplan, Curtis Cokes, Juan Laporte, Jose Torres, Aaron Pryor, Sean O'Grady, Ruben Olivares, Carlos Ortiz, Jerry Cooney, Chris Bird, and more. SJC fighters traveled the world for title eliminators and championship bouts in England, Germany, Italy, Scotland, Denmark, Finland, Australia, the Bahamas, and major U.S. cities including New York, Detroit, Las Vegas, Philadelphia, Dallas, Chicago, Miami, and Puerto Rico. In its prime, the gym housed elite fighters in every weight class, amateur and professional, sparring daily. Some sessions were better than televised bouts. World-class athletes such as Corey T-Rex Sanders, Alex Schultz, Super Zab Judah, Glenn Johnson, Hector Macho Camacho, Hurricane Peter McNeely, Fearless Freddie Pendleton, Kasim the Dream Uma, and Sherman Tank Williams were among those trained there. 12 fighters associated with SJC won world titles, including Freeman Barr, Stephen Frank, Ezra Sellers, David Armstrong, Bernard Harris, Uriah Grant, and others. 11 more, including Alan Vester, Vitaly Koptko, Joey Negron, Jose Cello Alonso, and others, claimed regional titles. Oscar Montilla, who began at age 14, chose military service over a professional career, serving 18 years and winning Army Olympic gold in 1996. Numerous SJC fighters were later inducted into the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. SJC also broke promotional ground. It staged Florida's first casino boxing event in 1996 at the Seminole Indian Casino in Immokalee. In 1997, it promoted the first live internet broadcast of boxing, viewed by over 250,000 people in 15 countries. In 1998, it produced the first live pay-per-view boxing event in the Caribbean. Community and legacy. Community support was instrumental. Mel's Diner hosted sparring exhibitions and events. Jones Intercable televised amateur shows, KIX Country 92.9 radio sponsored events. Bowtie Bob Alexander announced every Florida promotion and even traveled to the Bahamas. Butch and Kathy Flansburgh founded the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame in 2009, and SJC hosted annual open houses announcing new inductees. Sponsors such as Charlie Pichette and Brian Boyle were vital in sustaining operations. Phil Spencer has provided continued financial support, help, and guidance since 2010. On January 8, 2021, SJC opened its current facility at 4220 Cleveland Avenue and established the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame Museum within the same complex. In April 2021, SJC launched a mentorship program offering lunch, mentoring, gym training, and groceries to families in partnership with the Lee County School Board and the Midwest Food Bank of Florida. Beginning with 3 students from one school, the program has grown to 283 students from 60 schools. More than 50 have graduated high school, with others completing technical schools. Thanksgiving dinners became an annual tradition starting in 2021. The gym's story was captured in the documentary Worth the Fight, produced by Emmy Award winner John Fernandez. The film won Best Documentary and Audience Favorite at the Fort Myers Film Festival in May 2023 and top honors in Milan, Italy, later premiering at the historic Village East by Angelica Theater in New York City. The red carpet event was a full house with great reaction and excellent reviews. It even made the list of films under consideration for an Academy Award.
I set my mind into being a boxer because I'm a fighter. All my life I've been fighting everything. You know, being an illegal immigrant, going through school, fighting all the odds against me.
I don't know if it's because I wanted to be like Mike Tyson. I don't know if it's because I related to him a lot, or if I wanted to be a world champion, because when I came in here, I was afraid. I've always been afraid of life, everything.
Sebastian's father was gunned down by the Maduro regime. He was shot 90 times and made a display of what they're going to do to anyone that protests against Maduro.
To most Venezuelans, what happened here on Monday was an extrajudicial killing, a massacre, an execution.
He was fighting for freedom of Venezuelans. He always said this thing, he always said, I'm doing this for the kids of Venezuela. He wanted to be free, he wanted the country to be free, he wanted the kids from Venezuela to be free.
I was a bad kid growing up. I got into a lot of trouble, and I was a punk. I had an attitude. I thought I was tough. I thought I was cool. Joining the boxing gym gave me a level of discipline that helped me to go on and become a United States Marine, and not just the United States Marine. I went on to go through recon, and then I went through and became a scout sniper as well. And without boxing and martial arts in my life, I don't think I would have been able to achieve any of that.
On March 23, 1997, the city of Fort Myers proclaimed SJC Boxing Day, honoring the gym's 30th anniversary. City leadership under Mayor Kevin Anderson has continued its support of SJC ever since. After 37 years in Fort Myers, 57 years overall, the gym carries memories of sacrifice, discipline, and achievement. It has become internationally known, welcoming fighters from 76 countries. Flags line the walls, each representing a fighter who entered the ring in the United States beneath his nation's anthem. Posters commemorate promotions held locally and worldwide. The people behind the gym. Steve Canton was fortunate to learn from legends such as Angelo Dundee, Gil Clancy, Georgie Bennett, Eddie Futch, Lou Duva, and others. His coaching team now includes Carla Da Silva, who oversees the mentorship program, amateur membership, and amateur matchmaking. Head trainer Felix Malespin mentors Bobby Urtis and John Fernandez, and Mario Nunez, who rose through the program and now helps guide the next generation. Beth, Canton's wife, has been a large part of SJC's success throughout the years. She works tirelessly to make sure events run smoothly. In 2014, Canton authored Tributes, Memories and Observations of the Sweet Science, a 370-page volume with over 500 photographs. He also co-hosted a national radio talk show for 6 years with James "Smitty" Smith and contributed to several major boxing publications. In 2007, at nearly 61 years old and without recent training, Canton participated in a filmed documentary session contrasting old school and modern fighters. After 8 rounds of shadowboxing and heavy bag work, he sparred 8 rounds with 28-year-old professional Gus Wiley. The final round remains a teaching tool on ring movement and defensive skill. Grants from the Southwest Florida Community Foundation, now known as the Collaboratory, and the Baba Foundation help sustain the mentorship program. The gym remains registered with local and state authorities, welcoming individuals completing community service hours.
We've had our boxing club, SJC Boxing, for 56 years. During this time, we've had so much reaction, so much benefit for the youth of Fort Myers. However, December 31st, we would be on the street, all done, no more business because we couldn't afford the rent.
I'm happy to present on behalf of the Baba Foundation a check in the amount of $36,000 for SJC Boxing Club.
Thank you so much.
So my daughter approached me and the group, the board of directors of the Baba Foundation, said, hey, I met this guy, and he runs this organization for the kids, and it's boxing, and Dad, you just got to see it. So we put together the group to come over and visit one night, and gosh, you just kind of fall in love with Steve, his people, the kids, what he's doing. It's hot, it's sweaty, but the more difficult the surrounding here inside is, the better it felt. It just felt so good, felt so genuine, felt so sincere that this is the real deal, and that's how we felt.
To come here and be challenged in a physical and mental capacity, I think is very rewarding with the opportunity that Steve and SJC Boxing give these kids.
Well, because of the Baba Foundation, we now have the funds to continue not only next year, but we have an option after that. So we'll be in operation when our lease is here with a new lease. We can afford to stay here, and thanks for the Baba Foundation, because without them, it would not have been possible.
Mario Nunez, featured in Worth the Fight, postponed his professional debut after winning 3 amateur state titles, choosing instead to mentor young fighters. On October 18, 2025, he made his professional debut, scoring a first-round knockout just 1 minute and 32 seconds into the fight, a long-awaited milestone. Passing the torch. Canton worked corners with masters like Angelo Dundee, Emmanuel Stewart, Jesse Reed, Lou Duva, and cutmen Eddie the Clot Aliano and Al Gavin, gaining first-hand knowledge in controlling cuts under pressure. Today, he sits behind the desk in the gym each evening from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., watching his coaches lead the rounds. He often thinks of his old mentor Jimmy Brown, who in his 70s once sat quietly behind a desk at the famed Emmanuel Community Center on Race Street in Cincinnati, observing the gym he helped build. Now, as Canton watches the fighters move through their rounds, the scene feels familiar. The torch is being passed. The work continues.